good morning to my co-host, Meredith Lynch. New year, same show. It's the moment. Hi, Meredith.
Hi.
I'm so glad to be back. All right. The vibes are already wild in 2026. We have a ton to talk about today. In a little bit, we're going to be having America's government teacher, Sharon McMahon. She's a huge following on social media, and she's going to dig in to what happened in Venezuela, what happened next, the precedents. Millennials remember this before. But before that, Meredith is going to talk all about the Tim Walz dropping out of the Minnesota governor election. Meredith has been following this for a long time. She's been teaching me about it. Then we're going to talk about the other Timotei because award season is on and the Oscars are my Super Bowl. So I love watching award season and we're going to get into that. But welcome back, Meredith.
Welcome back. It's good to be back. Obviously, we missed everybody. There's so much to cover. And I guess let's just get into it. Let's about it. I am a big Tim Walz fan.
I know you are.
Many, many reasons. And so when I woke up yesterday and I saw the news that he was dropping out of the governor's race, I was livid. And I want to talk a little bit about just why he's dropping out. And I want to get your perspective on it. So Vienna's producer Vienna has a clip. So we'll do our clip.
2026 is an election year. Election years have a way of ramping up the politics at a time when we simply can't afford more of that in Minnesota. In September, I announced that I would seek a historic third term as Minnesota's governor, and I have every confidence that if I gave it my all, we would win the race. But as I reflect on this moment with my family and my team over the holidays, I came to the conclusion that I can't give a political campaign my all. Every minute that I spend defending my own political interest would be a minute I can't spend defending the people of Minnesota against the criminals who prey on our generosity and the cynics who want to prey on our differences. So I've decided to step out of this race, and I'll let others worry about the election while I focus on the work that's in front of me for the next year.
All right. Meredith, can you tell us what got us to this point?
Sure,
let's talk. This was a weird story because it was from several years ago and then it came up again, but you've been following it. So can you explain what led to this?
Well, here's the thing. I think it's a combination of things. Part of it is, and we've really seen this story ramp up over the last, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks. But part of this is that there was some fraud that happened during COVID around sort of those COVID bonuses and emergency funds, et cetera, that were given to different businesses. And some of that has involved daycares. And so the way that this has been spun is that it's really just the fault of Tim Walz and the Somali community, which is really interesting because when you actually look further into this case, there's a lot of non-Somalian people involved in this fraud. And so what I see happening here is an unfortunate case of fraud that did involve both people, from Somalia but the interesting thing about Somalian, the Somalian community in Minnesota is more than half of them were all born in the United States.
American.
And so it's there is this also idea that there's all these people who came from Somalia and they're taking advantage. And it's let's actually look at the numbers. But anyway, it's kind of become a talking point of the right. But I also would argue that just Minnesota became a perfect storm for Trump because Tim Walz gets at a lot of Trump's insecurities. Also, the unfortunate death of Melissa Hortman, the state senator, and her husband has been used as something that is a conspiracy theory. And, over the last few days, Trump has been saying that Tim Walz may have been involved in some way in her assassination. So I think it's just sort of the perfect storm. And so I find it to be unfortunate that he is stepping back, but I also understand it. And so I guess I would love to hear from somebody who's not as Tim Walz pilled how you feel about it.
Well, I'm first of all, with this story, I feel it had all of the MAGA hits in it.
Right.
Tim Walz is not just the governor of Minnesota. He was Kamala's running mate against Trump. And so he represents part of this, like Trump loves to sing this was the Biden, like Tim Walz represents that old guard that they sort of go after all the time. And then the Somalian refugees and COVID money, it's all like their greatest hits.
Right. It's their greatest hits. It's like a greatest hits.
Yeah.
Call him Tampon Tim because, he's advocated for transgender rights. And I think the other thing that really bothers them about Tim Walz is he kind of looks like them. So they kind of
right. Well, that's why they picked him to be the VP pick. Is he kind of had that like folksy, I coach football. So I saw this and I was like, here's my take is like, this actually made me more Tim Walz pills than I was before, because I actually think this was like the decent, correct thing to do. Like, it's frustrating that these Republican stories worked, that they got under the skin, but like, he said it in his speech. He said, like, the buck stops here. I'm the governor. This is going to take away. This is going to be, the story. It's going to take away from my ability to do my job. It's going to be a nightmare to run. It's going to be a nightmare for my family. And like, that's it. Like part of what I always liked about Tim Walz is he seemed like relatively unambitious compared to his peers.
He doesn't seem like a narcissist. And I think like even some of these politicians who, I agree with more or, are aligned with me more politically, there's like some like Obama's a narcissist. I love Obama
for his next job, like Tim Walz seems like to me, he seems like a true public servant, imperfect, like whatever, but this is why, because you said to me, you were like, oh, I hate this. And I was like, I actually think this is the correct, it sucks, but I think it's the correct thing to do because it kind of deads the story. And he's sort of like taking one for the team and like letting it go. What I think is interesting is that Amy Klobuchar is rumored to be getting in the race now. And part of why I find that interesting is like so many people are leaving Washington. Like Washington used to be like, to be a senior senator was like the hot thing to be, like that was pretty much as like high as you could get in Washington, unless you were running for president or like secretary of state, I guess. But like, it's interesting, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene is leaving and like, it's just interesting to me that Amy Klobuchar would want to leave her post in the Senate to go be the governor. I feel like it says something about how ick Washington is right now.
Yeah, I mean, is it a lateral move or is it a step down? I don't know. Does she still want to run for president? Like, does it set her up more easily?
That's what I think. I think it's that. I also think that I think that the fight against Trump right now, or like the political fight right now, if you're like in the arena, it's the governors versus the executive. It's like states.
You can get more done right now as a governor. You can get a hell of a lot more done to push back against Trump. But here's my
talking about for 2028, for the most part, are the governors. Like the big front runners are all governors for the most part.
Here's my concern with Tim Walz dropping out. And I get it. I really do get it. And like, Hope is a friend of the show. We want nothing but the best for the Walz family. And I also think it's
I'm a Gus stan forever. I will never not love Gus Walz.
But here's my problem. Here's my concern. My concern is, all right, Tim Walz is no longer a thing that the Republicans can go for.
What are they going to do?
What becomes the next thing? And are they just like, great, we'll just keep bullying people and creating, conspiracy theories. And then now, and I'm not saying it this, but it's like, okay, great. Now is Jasmine Crockett, are they going to find something like, so then she's dropping out. So it's like, I just don't want it to set a precedence, but maybe
they found a playbook that works.
Right. But part of me, I think also is like, God damn it, Joseph Biden. I'm using your government name.
Joseph Robinette Biden. Yeah. The day I figured out that his middle name was Robinette was like that was a huge day for me.
Was it? Yeah. Is that, do people do that in the Jewish faith? Because like, I feel like that's very a Catholic thing, is to have it's a maiden name. I believe it's a maiden name. I don't know. It might
No,
be.
no, that's not a thing.
I just assumed it was a maiden name, but I could be wrong. But anyway, producer Vienna will check that for us. But I was like, oh, maybe this is just what I wish Joe Biden had done.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. I feel like this was an honorable move. You know, it was an honorable
It is
move.
an honorable move. For not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more. Right?
Wow, she came in. Wow, this woman had a break. She came in with the literary references. Like, come on.
So, you know what I'm excited about? Speaking of literary references,
Tell me.
we've got some really good movies coming out right now, including Wuthering Heights, which we're going to do a little book club for Wuthering Heights, which we'll talk about. But I'm just realizing Wuthering Heights is not going to be in contention for award season.
No, and I don't think I bet you it won't for the following year either.
No, I don't think it will either, because the release, they know it's whatever. But let's talk about the other night, because it was Critics' Choice Awards.
It was like the kickoff of the season. Then we're going to have the Golden Globes. And it's like, you start to see it's like campaigns like anything else. It's like, you see the front runners, you see how they're being positioned, like it's a real thing. There's like very professional people who are there, like building out campaigns for them. And Critics' Choice Awards. I've seen Marty Supreme. I've seen One Battle After Another. I've seen Sinners. I've seen, what else is nominated? I think those are the ones that I've seen so far that are like the big front runners. I haven't seen Hamnet yet, but of course, everybody knows Timothy's been like on his quest for greatness. He got his first award, and then we saw him give Kylie for the first time like a real we're in it together nod. So like let's kiki a little bit. Let's watch Timothy prove us all wrong.
Actually, I'll just say thank you to my partner of 3 years. Thank you for our foundation. I love you. I couldn't do this without you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I like how they cut to like another guy, right? Like some dude right then. It was like, thank you to my partner. And it was like, oh.
They're like, where's Kylie? Okay, why do you think he hard launched her in this way after 3 years, after this like speculation? Like, do you think this is part of the campaign, or?
I think that Kylie is deeply private. Compared to some of the other Kardashians. So I wouldn't be shocked if they've been like, let's keep the focus on him until we really feel like he's at a place where he can stand on his own 2 feet, and that anything with Kylie just becomes like, because the bigger thing is really him on this quest for an Oscar. And so I think it's just sort of like timing. And I also think like by 3 years, I mean, listen, you and I have had our own.
For me, I would be like, either you're thanking me on awards stage,
off the pot.
Yeah, that's right.
But listen, when your situation, and I mean, like, even though I'm not a Kardashian fan, I kind of have a soft spot for Kylie. And so
I also I know that this is like, I don't hate his quest for greatness. I was sort of surprised. I remember I saw that speech last year where he was like, I want to be one of the greats. I look to the greats and I want to be like one of them. And this is a step in there. And I didn't realize that people were going to hate that. I like, my gut reaction until I saw what the internet said was like, he's earnest, like somebody who loves his craft, wants excellence out of it, is committed to it, takes on roles that are like interesting and complicated, doesn't seem to be out there like doing, he doesn't have like a side brand that he's like making money off of. I don't hate it. And so I don't know. I have a soft spot for Timothy.
I don't know. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, because I just felt like, I don't know, maybe this is like the middle-class Medford in me, but like, he was not from money. He is,
right. Exactly. It's like, he's just like a theater kid. Yeah. He grew up in Mitchell-Lama housing. If you didn't live in New York, is like public housing for working artists. Like, he went to LaGuardia Arts High School, which is a public high school. Like, yeah, he's just some kid.
It's not to say he didn't have opportunities, or he didn't. It's not to say that he didn't, benefit from the systems of white privilege. But what I'm trying to say is, like, I kind of see like maybe like just like you and I are both like regular people
Totally,
who have
exactly.
worked hard, and we're not thanking Kylie yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
I
That's
don't know.
exactly it. Is I felt like a younger version of myself felt exactly that way. I was like, I believe in excellence and I want to be excellent. And I'm like fascinated and fall at the heels of the people who've done it brilliantly before me. And I just want to do it in that way. Like, it was just surprising to me that people hate it so much. Before we get to our big story and Sharon McMahon, who is a brilliant government mind, let's quickly, I really want to play this clip of Chelsea Handler roasting Leonardo DiCaprio because it was extremely Meredith coded.
Here, thank God. Leo almost didn't make it tonight because he was trapped on a boat in St. Bart's. It was just like the Titanic, but worse because Jeff Bezos was there.
I just love that he's being called out on stage for his, like, it is a weird combination that he's sort of, one, he's nominated for, I loved him in One Battle After Another. He plays this like washed up revolutionary, but he sort of fancies himself this like great advocate for,
well, yeah, sure. I've talked about this many times. He's the climate. He's been the climate guy for quite a while. I mean, I can remember him being the climate guy, like when I was in high school. And so that doesn't take away from the fact that he's probably done some good work. But what's interesting about Leonardo DiCaprio is a lot of his work is very globally focused. And I think that's a very intentional move, because it's like, especially like if you want to hang out with people like Jeff Bezos, I'm not saying that his detriment of the climate hasn't been on a global scale, but there's like a very clear,
American,
American, right? And so I think, the thing is, like, if he was a chick, he would never get this fucking pass of being the climate guy, but then hanging out on the Bezos yacht, which he does all the time, or dating these young women. And so, I mean, I think nobody wants to, like, I've talked about Leonardo DiCaprio multiple times when it comes to this, but people don't seem to really, like, he's just like, there are these people who are so famous. And we talked about this the other day, whether this is Elon Musk at Kate Hudson's party. It's like, they just kind of get a pass. And I think it also has to do with when they got famous. I think now, if Timothy was on the Bezos yacht, even though Kylie could be, if Timothy, we wouldn't, like, he can't do that. There's a new standard that newer celebrities are held to.
Well, I also just like, and again, like, this is part of like your content lane on the internet that I think you do a really great job at, but I really, finally, we're calling out this very strange culture where Hollywood celebrities are hanging out with like tech titan billionaires who are funding government campaigns. Like, I'm just glad that we're calling out this sort of like bizarro upper class that seem to have a hold on everything and sort of lack accountability in how they use their public image. But
like, hats off to Chelsea Handler, because, I think there's a lot of people who would get on stage and they would not make that joke. And so I think it's also like, I said this to you yesterday. I'm like, well, the women are going to save the awards shows, because it's like Nikki Glaser, I'm sure will kill it again. Chelsea Handler did a great job. I'm really excited because we're going to have on Friday, we're going to have on Lori Kilmartin, who is writing for, well, I don't know, maybe we can't say it, but we'll let her talk about it. But she's written for a lot of these folks, and it's like, there's a lot of comics who get that joke from the writers who go, I'm not going to do it.
I'm not going to do it because I want to go hang out on Jeff Bezos's yacht. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, I always appreciate when somebody is willing. And you know what? It's also, it's fucking comedy, you guys.
Yeah, well, but it is so absurd. That's the thing, is it's absurd. It's absurd. But of course, the reason why she was making that joke about Leonardo DiCaprio being stuck in St. Bart's is because flights were temporarily stopped over Venezuela January 3rd after, I don't know if you heard, but President Trump, the United States, went and struck Venezuela and then extradited, or some would say kidnapped, President Maduro, who some are saying don't call him president. He was in fact a dictator. extradited him and his wife to the United States. He's now standing trial in New York. And shortly after, Meredith and I both watched this press conference where Trump said, we are running Venezuela, which is what we are going to ask our guests today all about. So joining us today is Sharon McMahon. She's better known as America's government teacher, which tells you why she's our dream guest for this. She's the best-selling author of The Small and the Mighty and the founder and editor-in-chief of the publication, The Preamble. Sharon McMahon, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
That bookcase, by the way, like look at the color coordination.
I know it's a lot of work. When you get a new book, it has to like wait in a queue until you can redo a whole bunch of things. So it looks great, but it is also a pain in the booty.
Yeah. Well, you're the only guest that has a bookshelf behind them that I'd be like, yeah, I believe that she's actually read these books.
I did read these. Yes.
I know you did. I'm sure you did. I'm really genuine. Like, there is such a comfort in having you here today because well, for a lot of reasons, but in my little millennial heart, I saw what happened in Venezuela and I was like, this actually reminds me a lot of what we were talking about in my civics class when I was in the 10th grade. Mm-hmm. So obviously we want to focus on what happened in Venezuela this week. There's all sorts of like, you know, back and forth, but I want to start with, is the US actually running Venezuela? Is that a thing? Can we do that? What are we doing here?
Well, okay. So there is a difference between what Trump says is going to happen and what Marco Rubio says is going to happen. These are not the same thing. So Trump on TV says, we're going to run it. We're going to do it. We're going to do a great job. We're going to, you know, all the senior superlatives until we can get somebody else to do a great job instead. Right. So that's what he says repeatedly over and over. And journalists ask him, just to clarify, are you saying X, Y, and Z? And so they really kind of tried to get clarity on what he was saying. Well, then basically the next day, Marco Rubio goes on TV and is like, that he walks it back. That's not exactly what's going to happen. You know, we're working with officials on the ground. And so the question is, the question everybody's wondering about is who actually is in charge? Because part of the issue here is the allegation that Maduro is not the duly elected leader, that he did not legitimately win election. And so consequently, he does not deserve the title of president, as you mentioned, and it's within our purview to remove this person from office. But then it does beg the question, why are we relying on his vice president, who was part of this election?
Yeah, it's not like it was one guy.
Right. Why are we relying on the other officials, which Marco Rubio has pointed out, are mostly from Cuba? Most of the security apparatus in Venezuela is from Cuba. This is part of the Cuba tie-in with the Trump administration.
I want to ask you about that.
We don't like Cuba. Cuba's ready to fall, according to the administration, and we're tying the security apparatus of Cuba to Venezuela to make it seem like it's all a big thing of dominoes. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. So who is running Venezuela? It's the people who were running Venezuela last week, minus Maduro.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought that this was, and now I'm hearing all sorts of things because Maria Machado, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for being the opposition leader, you would have thought that she would be put in the stead of, that's what you would have expected, I guess, if you think.
Well, she's been barred or was barred from running for office. And so she threw her support behind a different candidate who ran against Maduro. It is true that all of the international watchers of these things agree that Maduro did not legitimately win this election. And yet we have been referring to him as the president. We have been negotiating with him while also simultaneously saying he's not the duly elected leader. So yes, Machado has been saying, just gave a speech praising Donald Trump, and calling for a new election. And, the praising Donald Trump aspect of it, I'm sure, is very strategic in terms of wanting to make sure that, like, hey, I can get you on my side. Like, I can play nicely with you. I'm not a threat to you. I'm not a threat to you. She's not going to get anywhere by being like, you're just as bad as Maduro, or, like, that's not going to help her. So whether or not, and if Trump, of course, Trump says she's not popular enough to win an election, which is likely untrue, actually. Okay. It's likely untrue. But what she's trying to do is demonstrate that she can be friendly to the United States, that she's not an adversary. Like, I can be friendly to you if you want to help have another election. That would be fine with me. Like, that's the gist.
What would that look like to have another election in Venezuela right now? Because the idea of, like, let's pretend this happened in the United States. I'm like, we'd need a good 6 months just to recalibrate.
We can barely do our own. It's the anniversary of January 6th. My God.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We're not actually out here with the most stellar track record in the world, right? Like, let's not pretend that we're on some kind of high horse. Honestly, what it would require to have fair and free elections in Venezuela, if elections happen next week, those would not be fair and free elections.
Right.
We have not gotten rid of the people who were part of Maduro's government, what they call the Chavista regime, these are acolytes of Hugo Chavez. Maduro was Chavez's vice president. So this Chavista regime has not been fully removed from power. And so it would still be in charge of all of these elections. So you're absolutely right that there would need to be some kind of transition period. And this is the place where NGOs, non-governmental organizations, like the Carter Center out of Georgia, the former President Jimmy Carter's Carter Center, does a lot of work on democratic elections in the developing world. And they have a lot of, there's more groups too, but that's just one example. They have a lot of expertise in how do we legitimately run elections, because the people have to believe it's legitimate as well. In addition to it actually being legitimate, they have to believe it's legitimate. And we have seen what happens when people don't believe an election is legitimate, even a small percentage of the people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of, like, I don't even quite know how to make this transition, but, like, we've done this before. We're not particularly good at this, right? Like, I think a lot of millennials feel this way. I remember 2003. I remember seeing Saddam Hussein being taken out. And then we couldn't really rebuild in Iraq. And we've done this in Libya. We did this in Panama. Can you give some context here for other times the United States has gone in, pulled out a dictator, and then, like, oops.
Yeah. So I understand the inclination to try to sort of liberate an oppressed people from a dictator. I do understand that inclination to be like, they're not going to be able to get rid of him on their own. What if we send some dudes in the middle of the night, pick him up, bring him to the United States? What if we just did that? Like, you can see how they arrive at that conclusion, right? Like, I'm not saying that that's the correct conclusion. I'm just saying, like, you can see how they get there. We have done this repeatedly. We have not always put somebody on trial in the United States, but repeatedly we have attempted regime change through various methods. The most recent example of this is Afghanistan, in which we were trying to oust the Taliban from power, help prop up the Northern Alliance and other, groups that were more pro-democracy, more pro-United States. For 20 years, we were engaged in that activity of propping up regime change. And within literally hours of our withdrawal from Afghanistan, Afghanistan fell back into the hands of the Taliban. And now women and girls in Afghanistan have it much worse off than they did before. Like, the situation in Afghanistan is women are not allowed to speak in public. That is not an exaggeration. That's not hyperbolic. Women are not allowed to use their voices outside of the home. So, and that's not to say that Venezuela and Afghanistan are equal and they're exactly the same situations, but nevertheless, our history of regime change, even though it may be well-intentioned sometimes, has not actually resulted in more freedom around the globe as much as we would like to think that it would.
Well, here's a question, and it's not that I don't care about what happens in Venezuela or what happens in Afghanistan, but as America's government teacher, what has historically happened here when we go in and do a regime change? Because there has to be an effect on the United States itself. And so I'm curious, Rebecca and I were talking about the other day, I'm like, well, is this an economy boost for us? Like, is this gonna not take the oil part about it, but like when we go to war, there's sometimes an economy boost. So what happens historically to the United States when we go in and do this?
Yeah, so one example of this is what happened in Iran, where the United States was propping up a pro-American leader, the Shah of Iran, who over time just became more and more and more ostentatious and ridiculous and crowned himself the King of Kings. In fact, there's a new book out called King of Kings that is a biography of the former Shah of Iran. And of course, one of the reasons we wanted to engage in that kind of regime change in Iran is because of the Middle East's vast oil resources. Sure. We wanted favorable conditions for American oil companies. Britain wanted the same. We wanted favorable attitudes towards the United States. So in the late 1970s, the Shah of Iran decides that he's going to have a party to end all parties. And it is the 2500th anniversary of the Persian Empire. And he completely, he makes this party in the desert that if you Google this, you will literally, it's kind of jaw-dropping, the amount of expense and attention that this event garnered. The United States was invited. The president couldn't go, but the vice president and the second lady of the United States attended this 2500th anniversary party. So the show of ostentatiousness, where I'm talking a tent city constructed out of nowhere, all of the cooks flown in from France, fancy birds. I mean, like, I don't even have time to tell you all about it. Yeah. The result during the time that the regime that we were propping up was in place were very favorable economically towards the United States. We're talking about like the 50s, 60s, 70s. We were getting what we wanted. Mm-hmm. We were not asking the people of Iran what they wanted. And there were some things that they liked about the Shah. He was really focused on westernizing Iranian culture. And there were certainly some things that they didn't like. And the resulting backlash was the kidnapping of 66 Americans in Tehran, Iran, and holding them hostage in an embassy for over a year, some of them for over a year, and the installation of a much worse regime, the Islamic Republic, who is now one of the United States' mortal enemies. The Islamic Republic is. Yeah. So during the time that we are engaged in like propping up this regime, it appears as though things are going well.
Right.
Often, not always, often. And then usually there is a pendulum swing and the backlash ends up being much worse, not just for us, but for the people of that country.
Yeah, that's what I generally see with all of these, where it's like you're leaving a power vacuum. And so like at best there's instability, and at worst it's like true collapse. I wonder, I want to ask, Donald Trump has now called this the Donroe Doctrine. Yes. I guess we're taking this. What do you think? Is this going to go to Greenland next? Are we going to invade Colombia? Are we going to invade Cuba? Like, where does this go next? This feels like, we've all diverted our attention from the Epstein files. Like, is this going to be the year 2026 of the American empire?
I think so.
Really quickly, can we just remind people what the Monroe Doctrine is? And we have no one.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So in the early part of the 19th century, President Monroe had a Secretary of State named John Quincy Adams, who would later go on to become the president himself. He's the son of President John Adams. And he was, I'll talk more about John Quincy Adams another time, but they developed this doctrine, which they call the Monroe Doctrine, which was named after the president, that the United States had dominion over the Western Hemisphere. And what we were basically trying to say to Europe was no more colonization. Don't send any more of your ships over here to try to extract the natural resources of Latin America or the Caribbean or South America. The Western Hemisphere belongs to us. Y'all can have what's going on over there. We're having what's going on over here. And we have the authority to intervene militarily and economically in ways that suit our interests in the Western Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
So that Monroe Doctrine it's not a law, it's just like a policy posture that was in place until Obama. That is how long the United States.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, like you can see results of this during the Kennedy administration, during like the Bay of Pigs invasion, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we, according to the Monroe Doctrine, this is our hemisphere. We don't want Russian interference or Soviet interference in Cuba and what's happening near us. So back up off us, because we're going to send in our military. Well, obviously, Bay of Pigs did not go according to plan. Our attempt at regime change in Cuba, also not great. What has happened in Cuba over the last 80 years, 60 years has not been great. So that's the Monroe Doctrine. And of course, Donald Trump loves nicknames. He loves name calling. He'll develop a nickname for anything that he is attached to or that he strongly dislikes, like Ron the Sanctimonious, right? Like he has,
he's pretty good at it. Like he's pretty good at it.
Marjorie Trader Brown, because green turns brown when it's stressed. So this Donroe Doctrine, I don't think he coined the term. I think it actually has been around for a while, but
I think the New York Post coined it and he stole it from the New York Post. Yeah,
I think that's right. I think he liked it because he also enjoys naming things after himself. Yeah, which he would. This is not new information. So the idea, he's calling it the Trump corollary of the Monroe Doctrine, which is basically resurrecting the Monroe Doctrine and in his own image, saying the Western Hemisphere is ours. And you can see this on Twitter or X. You can see this in the social media accounts of official United States government social media accounts posting on Facebook, basically saying the Western Hemisphere belongs to us, like in all caps. So it's definitely this strong assertion that like, this is ours. And this largely relates to China's influence in Venezuela. China has loaned Venezuela tons and tons of money, and they are not getting paid back in cash. They are getting paid back in oil. And they are investing in Latin American infrastructure, Latin American ports, because China's appetite for natural resources is massive. And the United States doesn't like that. The United States does not want China in what it perceives to be as our neighborhood, even though South America is on a completely different continent. Venezuela is on a different continent than ours. So there's also this like sort of back off China, we don't want you here vibes to the Donroe Doctrine. And to very quickly, because I know we're going to run out of time, but to very quickly answer your question about Greenland, Stephen Miller was on TV last night and Jake Tapper tried hard to push him on, is the United States going to intervene militarily in Greenland? And he basically said this: the United States must have Greenland, but his assertion is that only 30,000 people live there. We don't need to get involved militarily. Like we can have it without having to intervene militarily. Now, Denmark disagrees. Stephen Miller's like, what does Denmark have? Why does Denmark get Greenland? Why shouldn't we have it? And Denmark is like, if y'all step one foot into Greenland, it is going to trigger the NATO alliance.
Yeah, it's such totally.
Yes.
Right.
So Donald Trump also doesn't like NATO. So he does not care. He actually would probably be fine if NATO was like, we're done. He'd probably be like, great, we're done then. So that's will the United States make a move for Greenland? I think yes.
Yeah.
Is something going to happen in Cuba? Maybe. And is something going to happen in Colombia? Possibly yes.
Probably,
I wouldn't be surprised at any of those. Good
Well,
times.
we'll just have to have. We will just have to have you back, Sharon, because we have got a long road ahead of us, and so remind our audience where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on social media at Sharon Says So. You can follow me at preamble.com, or just my website is SharonMcMahon.com.
We love your work. Yeah.
We love you, and we'll have you back
I'd love to anytime.
We're so grateful. Hang in there.
Good to see you both.
Bye, Sharon.
Bye.
Boy,
wow.
Oh boy. Wow.
What a time to be alive. You know what's funny is like Trump with the like Greenland piece where they're like, well, that will kick you. It's like a shitty boyfriend who's just self-sabotaging. He's like, I'm going to do the worst thing, and then you're going to have no choice but to break up with me.
The one question that I wanted to ask her is like, what does this mean for America first? Like, what happened to America first? Something that I've been thinking. I try to, as best as possible, like check my own assumptions and political beliefs against what's happening, because I see this and I'm like very anti-American intervention. I do not think the US should be the world's police. And so I'm like, okay, like that's kind of America first. But I also did think that we should come to Ukraine's defense. But I'm curious, like it's such an interesting, the far left or even like the normal progressive left and the far right both seem to agree this is not good. And I wonder whether it will affect him. I
think the thing about America first is it just depends which way you want to spin it, because it's really easy to go like for the Ukraine piece. You go, well, you know what? The United States has historically been about, like helping, like our values are based in whatever, and we're about helping, which like we could go and have that conversation, but you just spin it to another thing. You go, well, that's why we intervened in this, because like, our values are freedom and justice and whatever. And so I think that the thing about America first is like, it's so broad that it allows you to like, when there is military
whatever,
you just can say whatever the which way the wind is blowing. You can go, oh, but you know what? America first means protecting us from drugs, or America first means like, spreading our values.
That is how Trump spun it. He was like, it's because the drugs are a chemical weapon against the United States, which, by the way, he had just pardoned the president of Honduras for drug trafficking. So like, and it's interesting that like, this is no longer, he didn't really talk about the drug trafficking once this happened. It was like about oil. Like it's such a mess.
Well, I think that what happens is they look at what is trending, like what's getting the pickup, what are people believing, and I think one of the things that Trump is like relishing over right now is the fact that like there's a lot of sort of mixed, like, hey, we're upset about this, hey, but the Venezuelan people, that's like an easier, like more mixed up narrative than like pushing the drug piece, I think. And so he's just like, he's thrilled by that. So anyway, there's other things happening though. There's moments to discuss. So what's, we've had a lot of time off, and I'd love to know what is having a moment for you.
Well, there's lots of things having a moment for me, but I figured like it was just so 2003 coded, like going into another country and like no war for oil. Like we really are, like we always talk about like how people love nostalgia, and I just like, this felt like such a throwback. And so I decided for my moment today, I'm going to show you a picture of me in 2003. This is me coming. In 2003, we're bringing back wars for oil. We're bringing back the twisty updo. We're bringing back dresses from Weather Vane. So my moment is 2003, I guess.
So, I mean, it's very 2003 to have your moment be yourself too. That's very America first.
100%. It's that. It's also the
Where do
digital camera. You know what I mean? Like you can tell this was taken on a digital camera, pre-phones. Maybe I had a cell phone, but it definitely didn't take pictures.
Yes. Where do you think your dress was from?
Oh, Weather Vane, for sure. Do you
Weather
remember
Vane? Oh my God. Of course I remember Weather Vane. I
Yeah,
had some
you
of my
go in there. This probably costs like, I'm gonna guess $50. I'm gonna guess $50.
which like now a dress that's $50, I would say it would probably be like 125. Was
Exactly.
50
Yeah.
be like
Right.
125.
But like that's
Which
about
is
what you would spend on a
buy.
homecoming dress.
Yeah.
I also
Yeah.
another thing that I'm finding like very sweet about this picture is like just how like imperfect we were. You know what I mean? Like kids now, like they're constantly holding themselves to a very adult standard, a very perfectionist standard. We were holding ourselves to like Lizzie McGuire standards. You know what I mean? Like we were allowed to look young and imperfect and like, so
You also want these pushed back images of yourself all of the time, because some of the greatest fights I ever got into in my formative years were, why didn't you put up the pictures from last night yet?
Totally. Yes.
See, you guys have to understand that like Gen Z, we would go out, we go on our digital cameras, and like one person would have a digital camera. So
they
then
would
it
have
would
it
be
on
on
their wrists. Yeah.
Yeah. It would be on them to upload the photos the next
And they would
day.
have to make an album on Facebook. But even this 2003 was pre that.
Right. Community web shots, bitch. That's where I was.
I don't even know where these photos would have gone. Like these photos were just like screensavers on my parents' computer that we all shared and had to go on dial-up in order to go on there. Anyways, I just bring this up to say is like this was like wars for oil and American invasion is like the foundation of my political identity. Like really, like this was literally through high school. Like the Bush years were very formative for me, and they really I think developed my sense of politics, and they led to us, Barack Obama was my first election that I ever voted in. And it's just so odd to see this throwback. Like it feels weird. Like I forgot about wars for oil, but of course America's doing wars for oil. So 2003 is my moment. What's your moment?
I love it. Well, now I'm thinking about 2003, but I actually, I have a photo of a friend group as well that I'm going to throw up, because my moment is
I'm so glad this is your moment. Oh my God, I'm so glad. Okay, go cook.
Ashley Tisdale wrote a piece for The Cut about breaking up with her mom group friend, which has, we have surmised, given the following and unfollowing of Ashley Tisdale and people she was often spotted with, it is Hillary Duff, Mandy Moore, Meghan Trainor. And so basically what it surmised to is like she was part of sort of this mom friend group that really kind of developed during COVID, and then like after COVID's not over, but like after lockdowns, et cetera, they started like hanging out a lot in person. And she started to feel like excluded, and the group wasn't making her feel good about herself. So she ended up removing herself. So she wrote this article for The Cut, and it's kind of getting a mixed reaction, because some women are being like, yes, thank you for saying it. And then some people are like, you're clout chasing. Like, why did you write the article? It's immature to write the article. And I think first of all, I think it brings up like this complicated thing that happens to women who have kids, which I don't have kids, that you kind of can get thrown into friendships that like maybe you necessarily wouldn't have.
I hear this all the time from my mom friends. They're like, I'm stuck being friends with little Johnny's mom, who's like an idiot, but because our kids love one another. Yeah.
And so I think that's hard. But then I also think that like motherhood is very isolating. So finding people that like you can connect with is really important, et cetera. But as someone like who's had to leave a friend group in my life, like I kind of appreciate it. And it reminded, like the article reminded me of the last time that I haven't removed myself from tons of friend groups. I would say like the last time that I removed myself from a friend group, something happened and I felt the feeling I felt the pit in my stomach go like the twist that I used to get like in high school when I would feel excluded.
Yeah, keep going. But yeah, like I see this. I'm not somebody who does friend groups for exactly.
Neither am I. You know, we're both not like friend group people.
We don't do
like,
friend groups, but yeah,
but
like I see this picture of these women,
yes.
and I feel true anxiety. Like this picture gives me real, like I like groups of women who are like friends mostly are friends for the picture and for the group text give me like immense anxiety. I cannot do
here's
it.
The thing. Even if like this is what I would imagine happens is like there's one or two people in the group that you actually really fucking
exactly
outside of this, but then throw in a couple of people that like you don't really like or that like aren't your vibe, and then it gets toxic. And the last time that I had that happen to me, the person said something and I realized I had been excluded from something, and I just felt the knife twist and I went, ooh, I don't want to feel that. And I immediately removed myself from that group, and like it was the perfect move for me. But I've also will say I have many friends who are in friend groups and they'll tell me I hung out with this or I did this or me and a mutual friend got together, and you just know. It doesn't bother me. You just know when you're feeling some type of way, know when you're feeling excluded, might as well fucking own it. And I think the thing is like, it's actually like, I think a lot of women who are moms especially get pushed this idea of like that whole, which I don't really like the phrasing of this, but I'm going to use it. The whole like, find your tribe, find your village. Like, you know what? Actually, like you don't like it doesn't all have to be other moms. There's like,
do you think that there's some amount of this? I think that every time I end up in a girl group situation, because like it is like something, a way that we organize ourselves. And I feel like I get put into these situations and like everybody knows I'm like a curmudgeon. Like I'm the Larry David. Like I can't do it. I don't do it. But I do think that there's something about having been raised on the Spice Girls and Sex and the City that makes us think that this is going to be like the girl group is going to be great. And we're going to have like our birthdays and we're all going to take pictures and we're going to wear matching things and we're going to go on vacations and bachelorette parties. And like, it is my living nightmare. And just to be clear, I love women. I love my girlfriends. Like they're so important to me, but like the girl group is like truly my nightmare. And I think
someone in the TikTok is writing, I don't think that they want to be friends. Anyone would want to be friends with you. They probably think you're pretentious and insufferable. You know what's funny about this?
Like, yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Well, what's funny is this group fell apart after, like, pretty quickly after I removed myself from it. Yeah. And so, like, that's the other thing. Sometimes it's just one or two people controlling the situation that keeps a toxic group going too.
I just feel like that person that just said they don't want to be friends with you because you're pretentious and insufferable. It's like, yeah, I agree. I can be those things, which is why the people that I am friends with love me and I love them. It's like we forgive one another for our imperfections and we think one another are funny because of our quirks. But like, you can't do that in a group setting where everybody has to be equal best friends and we're all in it together. It's like, you can't be your complicated, weird, quirky, insufferable self in those situations. Like, you just can't.
Yeah. And I guess I would just say this, like, I appreciate the cut essay, but I will also say, as I would say with any toxic, as people would say about me that I've been friends with who maybe I'm not as close with anymore, there's two sides to every story.
Two sides to every story. And in this case, there's like 5 sides to every story. Right. Because
exactly. Yeah. So, and also one of the things she wrote about in the article is when she came to the group and was like, hey, I'm removing myself. Some people were like, oh, damn, like, hey, I'm sorry. Let's like work. And so like, it's okay. Like go be independent friends with like one or two people.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like I'm somebody who just, and like now we're going on and on, but like I'm somebody who really appreciates like true individual friends who like pick one another on purpose because we like one another as people and not because it's like required in order to keep an identity within like a group of people that look like something. You know what I mean?
I get why it's like survival in high school and even into college to some degree, but and at work, it's like a different thing, right? But as you get older, I just think this is like a good lesson for people is like, as you get older, I also think like a real value is like put yourself in situations where you're gonna meet other people.
Yeah.
Because, like some of my closest friends have kids, some of my closest friends don't. Like
That's right.
I know, like just because like I also think like sometimes people meet me and they're like, oh, she doesn't have kids, so like we can't be friends or we won't have, and it's like that's just not true. Like, girl, if I fucking vibe with you, like I'll come and meet you at the random time when you can hang out. Like, so
I also love your kids. Like that's makes
love kids.
They don't bug me as much because I don't have to keep them, you know?
Well, yeah, that's also true. Well, you guys, this has been such a fun episode. We will be back. We'll have a couple of great guests, including Lori Martin on Friday. We hope you'll tune in. And Rebecca, as always, thanks for hanging out.
Happy 2026, baby. We're back.
We're back.
Girl group of 2.
Right? Lock in, bro.
Lock in, bro.